We've been monitoring the scene all over the country, including right here in Oakland, California. We're about to be joined by California Congresswoman Maxine Waters. She has been working on these issues facing the nation for a very long time. In 1992, she was in her very first term in Congress. We want to remind viewers of this. Parts of her own L.A. district saw the violence, the unrest after many were shocked and outraged by the acquittal of officers in a beating caught on tape of Rodney King. The New York Times reported Waters presented herself at the door of President Bush after learning she was not invited to a meeting about those very issues. She got into that meeting. And here she was in 1992 discussing another issue, meeting with then Attorney General William Barr. He was in the same post then as now, and he was overseeing the federal civil rights investigation into the beating.
We want the Justice Department to prosecute. We want them to move with all due haste. Perhaps that will help stem the tide of violence. In addition to that, we really do need to look at further how we can have laws in this country that will supersede some of these jurisdictions that in fact are racist and backwards and some other kinds of things, who fail to prosecute officers who violate human beings.
The federal investigation did change the dynamics. There were charges against all four officers and convictions for two of them. As mentioned, joining us now on this big night is Democratic Congresswoman Maxine Waters, chair of the Financial Services Committee. Congresswoman, as you look back then and look at yourself and the work you did then, what's on your mind in what has and hasn't happened since then?
Well, it has been many years since Rodney King, and before that, I was confronting the then chief of Los Angeles Police Chief Daryl Gates, and not a lot has happened. Normally, when an officer kills even an unarmed person, usually a black man or a black woman, it is deemed justifiable homicide. But I want to tell you, I have a very special feeling about what is going on now. I believe that these young people in the streets are truly creating change. And I think we're on our way to the development of laws and practices that we have not been able to achieve with all of the struggles that we've been in about law enforcement and the abuse and the targeting and the killing of Blacks in particular. And so while there are many who are concerned about the protests, I don't think that people need to be concerned about the protest. People should be thankful because these young people are doing what legislation has not been able to accomplish. The ministers begging and praying have not been able to achieve. And it goes on and on and on. And so because these young people said enough is enough, and they have hit the streets and they're staying on the streets, I think that they have just opened up a new era in dealing with police abuse and with the killing of Blacks in particular. So I'm feeling very, very good tonight.
It's striking, Congresswoman, to hear you put it that way, given your track record. And we want to play one other thing we dug up, because when you look at history or social change, there's movement. And some of the movement, in all honesty, has been towards you, towards things you have said and others that back in the day was considered radical or extreme, calling out racism for what it is. Let's take a look at a moment again. I'm doing, it's late night, Congresswoman. We're staying up late. So I'm going flashbacks with you, with Katie Couric in 92. Take a look.
Why do you think they were acquitted in a court of law?
It is what America does not want to confront. It is racism, pure and simple. The anger that you see from young Black males in Los Angeles is an anger that's justified by the treatment that they receive simply because they are who they are. They're the color that they are.
Why was it important to you then to name it racism bluntly, and do we need to continue to do that now?
Well, you know, I have the ability to call it like I see it. And so I know that's unusual, particularly with elected officials. And I also know that the right wing, the white supremacists and the KKK had shut down using the word and claimed that those of us who would dare use the word were basically racist ourselves. And so for a number of years, particularly elected officials were squeamish about using the word racism. I've never backed down from it. And I think now that the world really knows and understands what it is. And so I'm pleased that we can openly talk about racism and get into a discussion about what it is and what it takes to get rid of it. And so, yes, I used it back then. I've continued to use it. I talked about the president. The president is a racist. As a matter of fact, I've known that the president is a dangerous human being, a would-be dictator who would move in the direction that he's doing. Many people were shocked when he came out and walked out to that church with the Bible in his hand, with the military backing him up, and having all of those protesters basically gassed, and in addition to that, threatened. I'm not shocked, and I'm not surprised, because I warned America that this was a dangerous man, a would-be dictator. This was a man who has no conscience. This is a man that should never have been in the highest seat of the land. And so I'm hopeful that the more he defines himself and the more he's rolling out, threatening all of these young people, it's not just blacks that he's threatening now. He's threatening these young white children, young people whose parents perhaps are frightened that they're out on the street, probably don't want them there. And they must realize that if this president dares to pull the military out on them, that their children are in danger, black, white, green, whatever color. And so while we are making movement here, I think we're on the verge of creating change. We've got to be worried about this president and hope that he does not serve this country another 4 years.
Congresswoman Maxine Waters, stitching it all together, including your view of the accountability at the top. Thank you so much. We appreciate you being a part of this. We were looking forward to speaking with you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.